Okay, so this is Tara Lindhardt, a great mandolinist in the New York City scene, and I guess you're also pretty popular in the Virginia scene, it would seem.
Some people know me.
Some people know you.
Mm-hmm.
So how old were you when you started playing mandolin?
Well, I was a guitar player first. So
Okay.
a lot of people.
Then how old were you when you started playing guitar?
I was probably 7.
Okay.
And then, but my parents didn't know anything about like bluegrass music, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Sorry, Mom, Dad. But they didn't. So I got classical guitar lessons, and it was okay, but there wasn't any social element to it. It wasn't fun. There was no like festivals or parties.
Yeah.
So I just sat by myself and played, which.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it didn't really.
Social butterfly.
Yeah, it wasn't, and I lived in the middle of nowhere too, so. Anyway, but so I did start a little, but then I really got into playing music. You know, I did some on and off through school when my friends would start playing guitar too or something, even sing and play.
Yeah.
But then I went to Galax, Fiddler's Convention.
Okay.
I guess probably the year between like freshman and sophomore year of college, or maybe just before I went to college. Anyway, and I saw like little kids just tearing it up, and old ladies, and you know, like when you go out to see shows, a lot of times you see like middle-aged men.
Mhm.
But then, like Galax, I saw, you know, there's no age limit, there's no sex, like anybody can jam well, and I was like, I want to do this. Oh my God, I really want to do this. I want to come to this festival every year, and I want to play this music.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what got me. And actually, Danny Nicely, I don't know if you saw our film, I think you did. But anyway, Danny Nicely, Mike Seeger, Sammy Shield, like all these people that we've interviewed over the years said the same thing. Well, I went to Fiddler's Convention. Some people get it from Bluegrass Festival with paid performers, but you really get the bug when you go to a place with no paid performers where everyone's just jamming and swapping tunes. You know, and for like someone that doesn't play, those festivals can be boring.
Yeah.
But for those of us that are really into seeing spontaneous jam sessions, it's just like, oh my gosh, life is awesome.
Yeah. Were you playing mandolin at that point when you went?
No, the first time I went, I was pretty much an observer, you know? And I think I had a banjo that I'd gotten, and I decided I was going to learn everything because I got so excited. And this is a mistake. A lot of my students will have the same mistake. I'm like, oh, don't do that. But I was like, I got a banjo. I was going to learn clawhammer style, bluegrass style banjo, mandolin and guitar all at the same time.
Oh yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, so I got all these instruments, and I started I got all these books, and I just like, I'm going to learn all of it. And I got really nowhere because you just can't spread yourself that thin.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, you know, if you want to get really good as a multi-instrumentalist, learn one instrument really pretty well.
Yeah.
And then you can just pull that knowledge over to the other ones. So I lent my banjo to a friend who lost it. And then I lost access to a guitar. I had no guitar. And then I just had a mandolin left. And then I started making progress. So
there you go.
That was fate. Yeah.
Did you like want to play bluegrass when you were younger? Like, did you know what it was, or?
I didn't know what it was too much, but you know, it's funny because when growing up in Virginia, there was a lot of people that played that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a little town called Taylorstown, which is really not even on most maps, but it's in like the hills, and you know, we couldn't see or hear any neighbors or other humans or anything. Anyway, but when I got my license, my best friend and I wanted to go do something.
Yeah.
There was really nothing to do for miles and miles, except there was a place called Luckett's, which had bluegrass every Saturday. I think it had, that time it even had Friday and Saturday nights.
Okay.
So we'd drive over and we'd see the bluegrass bands, because really there was nothing else you could do.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge fun thing. We're like, let's go to see the bluegrass next week. Cool. We go every week. And so I started hearing a lot of it, and that was probably when I was 16. And I did have friends that played, and that was a big influence on me too, just having, you know, a lot of friends in Virginia that played music. And yeah, but then like I said, and I went to Fiddler's Conventions, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, now I know what I want to do. Actually, I didn't become serious though.
Really?
And as a musician until I lived in Nepal. And I was studying tabla, which is like Indian drums, you know, like And I signed up to do it was like a 10-day or 2-week meditation retreat in a Tibetan monastery.
Yeah.
It's called Kopan. But anyway, it's just outside the Kathmandu Valley. And when I was up there, I would have giggle fits sometimes. At the 4 o'clock meditation particularly. So it was mostly a silent retreat, which was really cool. You had a couple hours a day you could talk. And we had meditations like early in the morning, mid-morning, early afternoon, whatever, on and off through the day.
Mm-hmm.
But the 4 o'clock meditation, there's this really nice nun that led it. I would get giggle fits and I would just ruin it every time. I was like, God, I'm sorry. I'll focus on my breathing. I know I got to channel my energy. It's like a monkey mind. I know. And then I don't know how many times I ruined it for everybody. But anyway, so the nuns and the monks were like, we need to have a little conference.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And so I remember one of the monks said, different people find different forms of meditation to be their most advantageous.
Yeah.
And he said silent meditation or chanting mantras or listening to the ding of the bell or looking at a flame works for some people, but some people need a more active form of meditation. Some people meditate through doing yoga or through doing dance or through doing music, gardening, laughter meditation, walking meditation. He recommended laughter meditation, which was very popular in India at the time. But they just get together and laugh for half an hour, which I totally get that. It feels really good. So I started thinking about the next few meditation sessions. I didn't actually meditate. I just decided what I was going to do. And I played music most of my life, casually and not seriously.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, well, I already play guitar. The tabla, I really love tabla. I love drums. But the more I played it and the better I got at drumming, the more I missed melody and rhythm and strings.
Yeah.
And I realized through taking drumming lessons that I really like strings.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. Sometimes you realize what you like by something else.
Yeah.
And I honestly love playing with tabla players in my bands. But like Pramod Upadhyay sometimes plays in some of those YouTube videos probably you saw.
Yeah.
Love it. But anyway, and then I knew I already could play some guitar, but I also knew I really liked to travel.
Mm-hmm.
And
guitars are too big.
Guitars are really hard to fly on airplanes with and to travel on little buses and to trek around. I was living in Nepal.
Yeah.
And you can take a mandolin on your back.
Mm-hmm.
You can take it on a bicycle. You can take it anywhere.
Yeah.
And it can do anything a guitar could do,
Mm-hmm.
if not better. Really.
Exactly.
Sorry, guitar players. But I teach guitar too. It's a good instrument. Right. Anyway.
What draws you to bluegrass now?
I like a lot of different styles of music. I love playing like swing jazz and gypsy jazz, and I still like Irish, which I did a lot of when I first started. But the sense of community and friends, unbeatable.
Yeah.
And I tell people this all over the world when I've traveled. Like, bluegrass music it's the most fun because it has the best community.
Exactly.
I can go anywhere in the United States and kind of Google around or whatever, find a bluegrass jam, and when I go to the jam and I play a few tunes with people, all of a sudden I have friends, instantly. I remember I was living in Virginia and I had some gigs at the Rubin Museum with my mountain music project, the Himalayan thing. And so I came up early, I went to a jam session or two in Manhattan, and all of a sudden people were inviting me to parties, and I could travel out to California, Idaho, I played music with some people and they're like, oh, there's this great little party, it's an invite only, but come on over. And that element, unbeatable. And so that's really what calls me back over and over again. And I've been trying to get people in Nepal to come to some of the fiddlers conventions.
Yeah.
And I got Sham to come to Galax and Clifftop and Grey Fox and so they're starting to do festivals over there too, but it's a little, each place has to make it their own to make it culturally make sense.
Yeah.
But things like, Mount Airy and Clifftop and Galax, these things are so important for the preservation and the promotion.
Yeah. The
dissemination, the diaspora of the music, because you get people coming and then they realize, oh my gosh, it's like everyone's speaking this language.
Yeah.
And also kids that go, instead of kids being assigned a teacher and then having to do a recital, which makes them nervous and uncomfortable, they just see everyone's playing this music game and it's really fun.
Yeah.
And then they decide they want to play the game too, and the only way they can play the game is to learn to play the game.
Yeah.
Which means they have to learn the songs.
Mm-hmm.
And so kids that grow up, going to these festivals, they just get so good because to them it's just like, I want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Talk, but everyone else is talking. I want to play the game.
Yeah.
So.
So you said earlier that you grew up in Virginia.
Right.
Do you see, like, many differences in the Virginia scene versus the New York scene?
It's an interesting question. Like in Virginia, there's a lot of jams, but in Virginia, there's an idea that you have to travel farther to do anything because I'm from a rural area. So for us, driving an hour and a half to go to something is like, of course we do.
Yeah.
We do that just to buy stuff, like, oh yeah, you get tires to drive an hour, you get a better deal over here, But in New York, people are like, wow, that's more than 5 miles away. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
If I can get there. Wait, that's more than like 5 subway stops. That's far.
Yeah.
But I think what someone told me when I first started gigging in the Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland area is he said, if you consider your neighborhood everything within 2 hours of yourself, you can have a lot of fun. You get a lot of gigs, you can go to a lot of jams. If you consider yourself living in a neighborhood that's a half an hour in all directions of you, you're going to get frustrated and disappointed and annoyed and bored, whatever. So I've always considered 2 hours in all directions basically my neighborhood. And you can meet a lot of cool people and get into a lot of cool stuff. And financially it's a good idea too because then you get fans and people calling you in on gigs.
Yeah.
And potential students from 2 hours in all directions too, which gives you a better regional presence anyway.
Yeah.
So, but it does take a little more money in gas and tolls and transportation issues.
That's true.
You have to put the time in. But if you're afraid to travel somewhere, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
That's true. Love to go to different places, sometimes just different towns or different venues or different countries or whatever. You have to just suffer through getting there. Yeah. Once you've traveled and suffered through the getting there part, you're somewhere different, which is pretty cool.
Yes. Okay, so you've been playing in the New York scene for a bunch of years.
I guess 5 years probably.
Okay, that's a bunch of years.
Yeah.
Have you seen it evolve since you've been playing in it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm really that keyed in and I've been here that long to say if something's evolved. I mean, it seemed like it was pretty hopping when I got here. It's pretty hopping now. I do like one thing about the New York scene is that there's a lot of people in the sort of younger 20s, 30s zone. In Virginia and D.C. area, there are some younger people too, but in a way I was honored and privileged that I got to grow up playing with legends, you know? And so a lot of the people that are in the Bluegrass Hall of Fame, I've been jamming with and doing some gigs with or whatever over the years. So I've heard some of the old stories from the people that, the Seldom Scene and the Country Gentlemen, and, those guys just hang out, just go to the jams and whatever. But I love the energy up here because you get a lot of these 20s and 30s and teens,
Yeah.
Though I realize it's hard for you to get into bars, so.
Yeah.
But the fact that in Virginia and North Carolina and Maryland, there's more jams that are not in bars. Mm-hmm. You get to see and interact with more kids because they get to go.
Yeah.
So they also get more encouraged because they get to go and watch and play tunes. So it would be nice to see New York get a few more all ages.
Do you have any standout experiences playing just in general bluegrass?
Well, I like to tell that are first getting into going to festivals, just to be ready for the festival moments. Mm-hmm. That's what I call it, which is being in a music festival as a musician. You get these amazing highs and lows, and you just got to surf through it. So, I remember I was at one festival, it was called Cabin Fever. It was a big, huge pickin' festival in a hotel. And it really was all about picking. And in Virginia, it was a lot of the same people that go to Galax. They went to Cabin Fever. So it was just a really fun mess. Every stairwell, every hallway. Like Jovel, but with 30 times more picking. I mean, just nuts, right?
Yeah.
And really all day and night. So anyway, a lot of times you'll find some really great jams by walking down the halls listening to the doorways because the high level stuff sometimes is behind a doorway. Yeah. It's not out in the hallway. So I was listening and I heard this amazing fiddler and I heard this great jam and I was oh, wow. So I kind of poked the door open a little bit And I was listening. I was like, oh, that's good. And I saw the back of the fiddler. And then someone, like, when he finished, like, looked over at me and he looked back and he was like, oh, there she is. There's that girl I was talking about. Oh, she's amazing. Come on in. I want to play this. And I was like, me? Seriously? And so I was already feeling pretty stoked because he was like, thought it was great. And I thought he was great. And he had been watching me play some hallway and he didn't have his instrument. So I didn't know he even played. And he'd been watching me and decided I was great. So then we sat down, and somehow it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If someone thinks you're great, you play better. Mm-hmm. If someone thinks you're going to suck, it's kind of hard to not suck.
Yeah.
But he thought I was going to play great, so I did. I played stuff that regularly probably wouldn't work for me, but it was. And I was just like, on fire. And after, I don't know, half an hour of jamming, I was like, I should go. I'll let you guys get back to your thing. Also feeling like, it's kind of like gambling. It's like I've been winning for half an hour. I should just cut my losses and take the win and go. And so I left. I was walking down the hall just feeling like cloud nine. And then there was some jam session and some people playing. It wasn't even that good of a jam, but it was just like there. And they said, come on, play with us. And I was like, okay. And I didn't really hear what the song was yet. And I just pulled out my instrument. I was about to start focusing on, well, what is the song? What are the chords? How's it go?
Yeah.
And they just said, take it. It's almost over. And I was like, take what? What are we playing? And I just did this really lame break because I didn't want to be rude and not play, but I really didn't know the changes or what we were playing yet. Mm-hmm. But really lame solo. And then the whole jam broke up because they said it was their last song, and so that's why they wanted me to take a break. Mm-hmm. Anyway, this one fiddle player came up to me and she said, you're never going to be able to play the mandolin. And I'll tell you why. And she started just talking about the way I stood or something, or the way I held my hands. I was like, I didn't know the song. I mean, I shouldn't have even taken the mandolin out. Like, I know what you're playing. And she was like, trust me, you're not going to be able to play the mandolin. And I was like, let's just play another song, something that we both know. Let's just play something. And she's like, no. So I just use that as an example of those festival highs and festival lows. You'll have the most amazing jam where you're like, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. This has all been worth it. Like, I'm so good. This is great. And then, like, an hour later, it'll be like, why do I even try? Why am I even, who am I kidding? I should do something different with my life.
Yeah.
And then, like, an hour later, it'll be like, that was insanely cool. Oh, my gosh. So if you know that they're going to be coming, you can kind of be like, that was a festival low. Should be a festival high coming along here soon.
Yeah, they take their turns.
Yeah, but you definitely have those moments where you're like, I just ruined a jam with some of my idols. That was awful.
Yeah.
Done that. But then you have those jams where you're like, you rage with some of your idols.
But at least you can say that you've played with some of your idols.
Oh, yeah. I've ruined some jams with some of the hottest names in the business.
There you go.
Absolutely, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry about this next question. But if you could describe the music or the scene in one word or phrase, what would it be?
Fun.
Okay, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier how you lived in Nepal.
Right.
How would you say, because I've seen a lot of amazing videos of you playing Nepali music, and I've heard some of your songs and that you've written, and, how would you say, has it inspired, your writing or, how you play bluegrass?
That's kind of a fun question. I think a lot of what happens to us as musicians is subconscious, so we won't even really notice. But one thing that's been fun was Nepali music doesn't usually have a rhythm instrument that's a stringed instrument. It has drums that they call a model, that does 1 and 5 tuning, and it kind of does a rhythm. And so a lot of times it'd be a sarangi player or a fiddle player, maybe a bansuri, which is the flute, and then a drummer, and me. And I was like, what is my part?
Yeah.
What do I do? And so, just for Old Joe Clark or something, our logic for Old Joe Clark is, here's the melody. Right? So the way we think is, and they would go, and so when I was playing a 4/4 time song, sometimes they were cool with this, but sometimes it felt weird to them. Mm-hmm. And so then I learned from them that they're expecting dun dun da dun dun da. And so, but just the way to split up the rhythm is different, which is kind of fun. And sometimes too, instead of doing the whole thing, I'll do I'll act like a model player because I would sit next to the model player. So a lot of times you can get all sorts of inspiration accidentally and just from it seeping through.
Yeah.
And there was a couple songs, I think I wrote like Zora's Waltz or something. And I remember after I wrote it, Danny said, there's something about that song, it sounds pretty Nepali.
Yeah.
And it's probably just, it comes out, that je ne sais quoi, that I don't know what, just kind of comes out. I don't know. But a lot of their songs sound like our songs anyway, so they're not all that different.
So you mentioned some about your mountain music project. How did that come to be?
So, when I was in college, I'm from Taylorstown, Virginia, which is a small place where a lot of people have like maybe cars that don't work up on cinder blocks that they use to store stuff in.
Yeah.
It's true, we do. But till they get bees or snakes or something in the car, and then everyone's scared to go in the car. But when I was in Nepal, it kept hitting me, man, this is so much like rural Virginia. There's like so many things where people are just making stuff and rigging stuff up and like, I can make something that'll work for that.
Yeah.
And I would tell people, and in Virginia, I know plenty of people with outhouses and hand pumps or sump pumps for their water and different things. So especially within the artists and the musicians and stuff, because, they're sometimes still cheaper in our monetary situations. But I kept telling people, man, Nepal and rural Virginia are so similar. And I was like, no, I don't think so. And then I brought Danny over there, Danny Nicely, and he was like, we'd actually been living in India for a little bit, and then we went up to Nepal, and he's like, oh, I get it. Nepal does feel like Virginia. It feels a lot like Virginia, and the food, it's kind of like Indian food, but it's not quite so rich and crazy. And he said, man, I feel like I'm eating food back home relative to Indian food. You get your greens and your veggies and, you don't eat meat, but sometimes you eat chicken or something. But anyway, and then we went up to Lhasa in Tibet for a week when we were there. And, basically I wanted Danny to come meet my friends from Nepal, so I talked him into it for that. But then he ended up learning all sorts of stuff. He studied sarod, and he studied raga-style violin. And we went up to Lhasa, we met a guy named Jake Penchansky, who no one goes to Lhasa the first weekend in March. It's really cold, but that's when we were there, so we went. And we just saw this guy who looked like he maybe was American, or he was definitely Western, and he had a guitar on his back, so we ran down the street after him. Like, hey, do you speak English? Do you want to play with us? And so we played some music with him. And he was traveling around China on grants collecting traditional folk musics.
Okay.
And then we told him about how weirdly similar it was in Nepal and in rural Virginia and how the musics were really similar. And he said, I wonder if we could write a grant for something and come do some project there together.
Oh, cool.
And we discussed that at dinner in Lhasa. And then Jake and I both tried to write some grants, and one of his worked. He got one from the Rubin Foundation.
Oh, cool.
And so that kind of was our startup money, and it didn't even really barely cover our plane tickets to go, but it just about did. So we were like, now or never, might as well just do it. We may never do it. So we went, and Jake sort of headed up the whole trying to make a documentary thing, and he hired 2 videographers from Delhi, 2 Indian videographers who were great, Praveen and Munga. And I'm still in contact with Munga. He's really funny. He lives in Delhi. And he's made all sorts of amazing movies. So we just traveled around for about 2 months. The first month we traveled around Nepal, and we interviewed and recorded music in all sorts of different regions of Nepal. So we tried to, go to like the southern flatlands and the western hills. Yeah. And near Pokhara, near the lake, and just so we could get a whole variety of people. We didn't make it to the Far East, and I just recently met Bartek Gandharva, who's from the Far East of Nepal. Yeah. It's just a slightly different style, and I was like, we should have known you then. Anyway, and I didn't know Sham Nepali or some of those other guys yet either. Yeah. So it was good, and we ended up, the Nepalis were really interested too, because the music that comes from the United States that tends to make it globally is often pop music. Yeah. It's the Britney Spears and the Michael Jacksons and, traditional fiddle tunes. People don't import and export them very much. So
Yeah.
they were really excited
I
to
saw
know.
your video with Barta for Angela and the Baker.
Oh, right. Yeah, I
was
showed her
really
that earlier that day. She did a great job catching it. But yeah, so the Nepalis were really excited to help us sort of do that too. And then since then, we've been kind of going back and forth, setting up music education programs at different orphanages and
Yeah.
stuff, so we can help get some of the Nepali traditional masters jobs teaching music and get kids that normally wouldn't have access to music education learning about traditional Nepali music. So it seems like a win-win. So we try to get donations to do that too.
That's super cool. I watched your documentary and it was awesome.
Yay.
This is kind of like changing the subject, but I think this is my last question. But this is such like a male-dominated genre of music, and you're a female. So how does it like feel being a woman in?
You know, it's funny because I think many things globally of any genre have a sort of a male presence being a predominant element. One thing that I found is the most helpful, this might sound really funny, but just in general, sometimes the best way for me to not let being a woman hold me back is to not notice that I'm a girl.
Okay.
Just don't even notice.
Just
pretend you don't even notice there's a difference.
Yeah.
And that's often the easiest and the best and most effective way I've found. And that's with traveling too. I mean, there are definitely times where I'm like, if I'm traveling, there's like no women on the streets, I'm like, something's happening. This is bad. The women all disappear from a street, and you're walking down a street in Egypt or India or whatever, and suddenly there's no women. There's danger coming because women are like deer. They figure it out and they leave, and you're like, there's only men on the street. But in general, except for those times, like with music or leading or taking solos or whatever, if I just don't even notice that I'm a chick, or I just make sure I try not to notice.
Yeah.
I do real well. Which is funny because it's not something you hear a lot of people tell you. But I think it's often the most effective thing. And then if I kind of act gender blind, those around me end up doing it too because they're like, oh, I would do that too, you know. Guys so a lot of times I get treated like one of the guys because I'm acting like one of the guys.
Yeah.
That has its pros and cons too. You know, sometimes you're like, hey, I'm a girl. And they're like, oh, right. You know?
Yeah.
But, pros and cons.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes.